Before we dive into this story, take a moment to settle in. What you're about to hear is a journey of quiet strength, painful clarity, and the kind of freedom that only comes after years of being taken for granted. If you've ever given more than you received, if you've ever carried a family that never carried you back, this one will hit home. Now, let's begin. My family didn't call. They didn't ask questions. They didn't even hesitate. They sent one text. "We need distance from you. Stop reaching out." Just that. No explanation. No humanity. A message sitting in the middle of my screen like a neon eviction notice. I stood in my little one-bedroom in East Sterling, the kind of quiet space I built piece by piece after years of scraping. For a second, the room felt too still, too sharp around the edges. But instead of spiraling or begging, something steadier rose in me. I typed the calmest sentence I've ever written in my life, a sentence they would one day regret. My name used to be Avery Halston, the dependable one, the one everybody leaned on without ever looking down to see what it cost me. I worked as a payroll coordinator at a mid-sized care center, keeping other people's numbers straight while my own life stayed tightly organized and quiet. My apartment was the same, soft lamps, polished counters, everything labeled, everything sorted. Stability was my language. It had to be. And for as long as I can remember, stability in my family meant one thing. I handled the responsibilities no one else wanted. My mother, Doretta, loved to quote the same line whenever bills piled up. "Family steps in for family." She'd say it while pacing near the stove or wiping down a counter, sighing just loud enough to make guilt feel like gravity. My father, Leonard, preferred lectures. He talked about duty, legacy, and not nickel-and-diming blood. Any time his voice dropped into that low rumble, I knew money was about to leave my account. And then there was my sister, Celeste, 3 years younger, infinitely louder. She was the kind of person who turned a grocery run into an audience. Fresh weaves, fresh outfits, fresh chaos. Her nickname for me was the banker. Half joke, half manipulation. Fully convenient whenever she needed help with rent, a car note, or whatever new crisis had bloomed overnight. Whenever I said no, the chorus began. "You know she's trying. You know she can't do it alone. Avery, don't make things difficult." Even our extended family joined in, a group chat full of memes, gossip, and love until money entered the chat. Then suddenly I became the villain for hesitating, the stingy one, the one making things awkward. They never knew the knots I twisted myself into every month just to keep their troubles from becoming disasters. And yet, in the middle of that noise, the only person who never treated me like a walking solution was my Uncle Rayford. He ran a small moving business on the west side, strong hands, quiet presence, eyes that saw more than he said. He watched everything. He never asked for a dollar. I didn't understand how much that would matter, not yet. For years, I told myself this was normal. Every family had roles, and mine had molded me into the one holding all the broken pieces together. I thought it wasn't personal. I thought it was love. But every time I opened my banking app, every time my own plans shrunk so theirs could survive, something small inside me tightened a little more. And then, little by little, the world shifted. The tension started with Celeste, because of course it did. She arrived at my parents' place in a brand new caramel-colored coat, the tag imprinted across the sleeve, and began bragging about some high-rise apartment she was thinking about upgrading to. She didn't even glance my way. "You'll help with the deposit, right?" she asked, casually scrolling. "No," I replied. Not harsh, just final. My mother froze mid-wipe. My father inhaled sharply, and Celeste just smirked. "Girl, you're doing the most. It's not that serious." That night, sitting in my car while the heater rattled, I wondered why saying no felt like a confession. But the real fracture came 2 days later. I was at work, in the middle of logging deductions when my office phone rang. It was my parents' landlord, cheerful, chatty, calling to confirm they were renewing their auto-pay contract with me, the one I apparently approved and even updated earlier that week. Except I didn't. He thanked me for reversing a late fee I didn't know existed. Then he said he appreciated my parents giving him my work email and my schedule, so he could reach me when I wasn't too busy. I sat frozen, staring at the cheap canvas art above my desk as a cold weight settled in my chest. They hadn't just taken my money. They'd handed out my private information, my job, my schedule, like it was a coupon. That night, I drove straight to their apartment. I confronted them. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked for honesty. Doretta's face hardened instantly. We feel attacked. Leonard folded his arms. Don't try that tone with us. Celeste leaned in the doorway, laughing. Should we tip you now or later, banker? It wasn't an argument. It was something worse. Cruelty delivered like routine. I left. And the next afternoon, the message appeared. We need distance from you. Stop contacting us. Something in me didn't break. It woke up. The seconds after that message didn't feel real. They stretched out, thick and suspended, like the air itself wanted me to sit still long enough to understand what had just happened. My family hadn't asked for space. They had executed a separation. A clean cut. A final verdict. I sat on the edge of my bed, my phone dimming in my hand, and for the first time in my life, I felt a clarity so sharp it almost hummed beneath my skin. If distance was what they wanted, I knew exactly how to give it. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. Uncle Rayford. He rarely called. Only when something mattered. His voice was low, steady. Avery, I'm at your folks' place. My heart tightened. Why? They asked me to help pack. I blinked, unsure I'd heard him right. Pack what? He hesitated. Everything. My pulse stilled. Clothes. Dishes. Old photo frames. Furniture I'd helped buy over the years. They weren't just cutting contact. They were physically uprooting themselves, disappearing from the life I'd built around supporting them, leaving me behind like the last unpaid bill. I'll make sure anything with your name on it gets back to you, he added. Don't worry. He wasn't taking sides. He was simply the only one in the family who didn't speak in manipulation. When the call ended, I sat in the middle of my room, surrounded by the quiet I used to chase, but now barely recognized. I reached for the drawer where I kept years' worth of receipts, color-coded, neatly stacked. Housing, utilities, transit, health costs, miscellaneous emergencies. All the invisible anchors they never acknowledged. I had told myself the organizer was for my peace of mind, but when I spread them across the floor, they looked less like budgeting and more like evidence. Evidence of the ways I'd erase myself piece by piece to keep them afloat. The papers curled slightly at the edges. Tired. Just like I was. For the first time, I let myself say the truth silently. This wasn't love. This was dependency wearing a family badge. And instead of shattering me, it freed me. That evening, Elijah came over. Quiet presence, warm eyes, a man who knew how to move gently in a world that felt jagged. You got a message, he said, reading the exhaustion on my face before I even showed him the screen. I slid my phone toward him. He looked at the text. His jaw tensed, but his voice stayed soft. Avery, this isn't something you caused. I didn't cry. Didn't shake. I just exhaled, long and slow, like I had been holding my breath for years. I'm done, I whispered. Elijah sat beside me on the hardwood floor, surrounded by my color-coded history. Then let's start with the truth, he said. Show me what you've been carrying. I handed him the first stack, green for housing. He moved through them slowly, page by page, as if reading a story he wished he had known sooner. The next morning, I walked into Dr. Sella's office, my therapist of nearly 2 years, and laid out everything. The text, the apartment, the financial entanglements, the packed boxes, the entire pattern I'd been choking on quietly. She listened without interrupting. Then she leaned forward, voice calm but exacting. Avery, ending an unhealthy financial obligation is an abandonment. It's self-preservation. That line felt like a door unlocking. By the time I walked back to my car, my hands weren't trembling. My breath wasn't shallow. I knew exactly what needed to come next. Not revenge. Not a fight. Not begging. Just truth, delivered as clearly as they delivered their exile. But I didn't send anything yet. That night, I turned my phone face down, silenced every notification, and slept deeper than I had in months. The next morning, when I finally flipped it over, the family group chat was a storm. Missed calls. Paragraphs. Panic disguised as confusion. Celeste, where are you? Why aren't you responding? Mother, you're being dramatic again. Father, if you want distance, we'll do everything without you. Don't bother acting brand new. The irony almost made me laugh. They demanded distance and then demanded my attention. I scrolled back to the original message. The one that cut everything open. We need distance from you. Stop contacting us completely. I reread it like a contract. Because that's exactly what it had become. With their own words as the foundation, I prepared my reply, not emotional, not reactive, but factual and final. I walked to my small kitchen table, laid out every stack from the night before, took a picture of each category: housing, utilities, transportation, healthcare, subscriptions, miscellaneous support. 7 years of financial scaffolding they'd leaned on so deeply they forgot I wasn't built from steel. My fingers didn't shake as I sent them. And then I typed the line that shifted everything. I'm honoring your request for distance. Here is a summary of what I've been paying for. All payments end on the dates circled. Transfer everything into your names within 30 days. Send, send, send. Then came the final blow. I'll cancel the direct deposits first thing. For 2 whole minutes, the chat was silent. Then the panic hit like a siren. Mother, Avery, what is this supposed to mean? Father, money isn't family. Don't you dare weaponize it. Celeste, you're sick. You're doing this to humiliate us. Auntie Verna chimed in. Then my cousins. Then cousins' spouses. A whole choir of guilt. Mother again. We wanted distance from your attitude, not from you. I typed. Your message said stop contacting you completely. I'm honoring it. Then hit send. The typing bubbles sputtered and stopped. Just for a moment. And that moment was the first peace I'd felt in years. The calm didn't last. A few minutes later, my father unleashed a long, frantic paragraph, no commas, no periods, just rage rolling downhill with no breaks. After everything we did for you as a child, this is the thanks we get. We trusted you with our bills because we thought you understood family. It was the same speech he'd given me in different forms for years, love held hostage by obligation. I didn't reply. Then Celeste tried a new tactic, one she'd used since middle school. I can't afford to move right now. You want me in a dangerous neighborhood? Are you happy if something happens to me? Emotional blackmail. Her favorite weapon. I typed slowly, carefully. I hope you stay safe. But your lifestyle is not my responsibility. For the first time in my life, I pressed send without fear. Silence followed. Not peace, just shock. Then the call started. First my mother, then my father, then Celeste. Over and over. Each call ringing through my apartment like an alarm. I didn't answer a single one. I turned on Do Not Disturb and let the noise ricochet into nothing. An hour later, a new message appeared. Not in the group chat. Uncle Rayford, I'm dropping off some boxes tonight. Some things that belong to you. I paused. Belongs to me? When he arrived that evening, he stood in my doorway holding 3 neatly stacked boxes, each one sealed with fresh tape. His jacket smelled faintly of dust and cold air. They tried to rush me, he said, shaking his head. Told me not to sort anything. Said nothing in the apartment was yours. But I saw your name on a few things. He set the boxes down gently. Inside were items I had bought for them across the years. Kitchen towels still wrapped, a blender I'd ordered during a holiday sale, a router they never bothered to install. Things meant to make their lives easier. Left unopened. Unappreciated. Now returned like unwanted gifts. Rayford's voice was low as he watched me take it all in. You did a whole lot more for them than they ever admitted. His gaze softened. Don't let them twist this. But something twisted inside me anyway, not regret, not heartbreak, but grief for a fantasy of family that never really existed. After he left, the group chat exploded again. Mother, how could you let Rayford see our private business? Father, We will never forgive you for embarrassing us like this. Celeste, you ruined everything. This is all your fault. I leaned over the sink, breathing in the quiet hum of my fridge instead of their chaos. I typed nothing. 10 minutes later, the messages shifted again, predictable as tides. Anger softened into desperation. Mother, please don't do this. Your father hasn't slept. Father, I worked my whole life. You owe me respect. Celeste, if you stop paying the phone bill, how am I supposed to call work or get help? This time, I responded only once. I'm not discussing money anymore. A long pause followed. Then Celeste broke. I just don't understand why you're so cold now. My response was simple. You told me not to contact you. I'm doing what you ask. This time, all of them went silent. For the first time in years, the quiet in my apartment wasn't fear. It wasn't punishment. It was space. Breathing room. A small, brave beginning. But around midnight, the storm came back. Extended family entered the chat now. The cousins, the aunts, the entire peanut gallery. Aunt Verna, we never thought you would behave like this, Avery. Cousin Tiana, this is extreme. You could have handled it better. Another cousin, families sacrifice for each other. Why can't you? I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I uploaded a single document instead, a clean outline of resources. Budget templates or renter's assistance links, utility hardship programs, phone carrier transfer guides, step-by-step instructions for becoming financially independent. And at the bottom, one line. You are capable. You always have been. The group chat fell utterly silent, the kind of silence that feels like a door closing. Around 2 a.m, a final message appeared. From my mother. If you do this, you're dead to me. I stared at the words for a long time. Not because they hurt, but because they didn't. I typed back. I'm sorry you feel that way. Then I placed my phone face down on the table. In the dark, something unfamiliar slipped into my chest. Relief. Warm. Steady. Real. The kind of relief you only feel when a burden finally puts itself down. By sunrise, the group chat was quiet. Not the tense, waiting kind of quiet, but the hollow kind that comes after a storm has finally exhausted itself. For the first time in years, my morning didn't begin with dread. No vibrating phone, no new crisis, no sudden bill I was supposed to just handle. I brewed coffee, sat at my small kitchen table, and let the silence settle around me like a blanket I hadn't realized I needed. Then I opened my laptop. It was time to finish what I had started. One by one, I cut every financial thread tying me to them. I removed my card from all shared services. Updated account logins they'd used without permission. Changed passwords I hadn't touched in too long. I canceled every automatic payment connected to their names. Notified the bank of unauthorized access from months prior. Each confirmation email felt like I was unhooking a weight from my ribs, slowly making room for breath. Later that week, I sat across from Dr. Sela, explaining the strange mix inside me. Lightness and fear coiled together. I feel calm, I told her, and terrified at the same time. She smiled the way someone does when they've been waiting for you to find your own reflection. Peace can feel dangerous, she said, when chaos has been your normal. Her words hit me deeper than I expected. That night, Elijah showed up at my door carrying takeout and something softer, presents. He didn't ask for details. Didn't try to fix anything. He just sat beside me on the couch, our knees touching, grounding me back into my own body. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. And for the first time, I didn't deflect. I didn't shrink. I believed him. The days that followed didn't explode with drama or big endings. They unfolded quietly, a kind of quiet that felt new, almost fragile. I walked without checking my phone every 3 minutes. I cooked dinner without flinching at the thought of an incoming request. I went to sleep without expecting a crisis to yank me awake. Slowly, the silence stopped feeling like an absence. It started feeling like freedom. I learned something in that stillness, something I should have learned years ago. Love without respect is debt. And boundaries aren't cruelty. They are survival. Around the second week, I found myself doing small things for me, picking up a new plant, taking a longer route home just because the sky looked pretty, buying a book I'd been putting off because what if someone needs something suddenly? No one needed me suddenly, and the world didn't collapse. I realized that the life I'd been terrified to claim wasn't loud at all. It was steady, warm, uncomplicated. The kind of life I had been unknowingly building for everyone else, but never for myself. By the third week, the group chat sat untouched, buried under normal notifications, lost in the shuffle of everyday life. I didn't block them. I didn't delete the thread. I simply stopped feeding it. The final shift came quietly, not with drama, but with acknowledgement. I looked around my apartment one evening. The gentle lighting, the living plant near the window, receipts gone, my table no longer covered in someone else's burden, and I realized I wasn't waiting for chaos anymore. I wasn't anticipating need. I wasn't bracing for guilt. I was living. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of what that meant. As the weeks stretched forward, something unexpected happened. My life didn't explode without them. It expanded. I found pieces of myself I didn't know I'd misplaced. A quiet morning routine. A slow-growing confidence. Room to think, and then room to feel. No more late-night calculations. No more jumping at every notification. No more shrinking to fit the shape of everyone else's emergencies. One evening, I lit a candle, sat on the floor with a notebook, and wrote a sentence I had never let myself write before. I deserve a life that isn't built on sacrifice. Not obligation. Not expectations. Not inherited burdens. Me. It felt strange to center myself, almost rebellious. But it also felt right. When I checked my phone later that night, there were no new messages from my parents or my sister. No guilt-laced paragraphs. No manipulative pleas. No emotional traps disguised as conversation. Just silence. The kind that doesn't hurt. The kind that lets you rebuild. Elijah showed up later with a smile and leftovers from the diner down the street. He didn't knock loudly, just tapped gently, the same way he always did. When I opened the door, he studied my face for a moment. "You look lighter," he said. And for once, I didn't downplay it or pretend it wasn't true. I told him. And I meant it. We ate on the couch, legs touching, TV murmuring in the background. It wasn't a grand moment. It wasn't cinematic. But it was real. Steady. Mine. The kind of peace that comes after finally putting down a weight you didn't realize you'd been dragging for years. In the following days, I found myself clearing out old belongings, not in anger, but in release. A symbolic reset. I donated items I had purchased under pressure, revamped my apartment in small ways, opened windows, let sunlight in, let air circulate through parts of my life I had never given room to breathe. I didn't erase the past, but I stopped carrying it like a punishment. Months passed before my mother sent a single message, a short, clipped line. "We need to talk." And for the first time in my life, I didn't panic. I didn't rehearse what to say. I didn't feel obligated to respond. I didn't feel small or guilty or responsible. I simply let the message sit there, unread, unanswered, unechoed, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, because I had finally learned the truth. Distance isn't abandonment. It's protection. And walking away isn't cruelty. It's choosing yourself. A decision my family had never once prioritized for me, but one I had finally learned to make for myself. And if anyone else has ever had to draw that same invisible line, if you've ever stepped back just to survive, then you know exactly what I mean. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop handing people the power to exhaust you. And sometimes the happiest ending is simply peace. Stepping away from people who once held the closest parts of your heart isn't an easy story to tell or to live through. But sometimes peace arrives disguised as separation. Sometimes the healing begins only when the noise stops. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is reclaim your life, thread by thread, and choose yourself without apology. If you've ever carried a family on your back until you could barely stand, if you've ever been labeled cold just for setting a boundary, if you've ever had to unlearn guilt to find your freedom, then you already understand this journey better than anyone. My hope is that this story reminds you of one thing. Your worth was never tied to how much you could give. Your value doesn't disappear when you finally say no. You deserve peace. You deserve respect. You deserve a life that fits you, not everyone else's demands. If this story touched you, inspired you, or made you feel seen, hit subscribe, like this video, comment where you're watching from, and share your own experience in the comments. Your story might be the one someone else needs to gather the courage to set themselves free. Stay tuned. More powerful stories are coming. You are not alone, and your peace matters.